The Joe Rogan Experience.
Mexico Sinaloa cartels message to members: stop making fentanyl or die. Good. Crime
Wow.
group yields to intensifying U.S. law enforcement pressure and is kidnapping or killing producers who defy its ban on trafficking the opioid. Good.
Interesting.
Good. I'm with them.
I wonder why.
Well, I mean, it's fucking up their business. Their
Right.
business is selling cocaine. And then these guys make fentanyl and they cut the cocaine with
Right.
fentanyl and people are dying. And then law enforcement pressure starts ramping up. And then what they're really worried about is an invasion. The military decides to go after the cartel. The cartels
Right.
are fucked.
Right.
I mean, they start airstriking cartels with jets.
Gnarly.
That's a wrap.
Yeah. Crazy. How crazy is it how the fentanyl these days is mixed with Tranq, or it's Tranq? Have you heard of that?
What's Tranq?
I can't believe you haven't heard of this. Tranq with a Q. So Tranq is fentanyl mixed with a horse tranquilizer. So the horse tranquilizer makes the fentanyl last much longer, is my understanding. Jamie's probably looking it up right now. But the Tranq is a horse tranquilizer. They mix it with fentanyl, I think, to make it last longer and make it more powerful. And the fucked up thing is it's so toxic, they all inject it. It's so toxic that it's so poisonous in your body that your body's trying to get rid of it. So it creates these massive sores where the drug is trying to get out.
I saw that in Russia.
Yeah, and people it's here now, dude, big time. People are getting sepsis and having to get their limbs amputated. It's really, really gnarly.
Go back to that article that you were just posting.
DA message about it.
Okay,
Xylazine.
Xylazine is making the deadliest drug threat in our country that our country has ever faced. Fentanyl even deadlier, said Administrator Milgram. DEA seized xylazine and fentanyl mixtures in 48 of 50 states. The DEA laboratory system is reporting that in 2022, approximately 23% of fentanyl powder and 7% of fentanyl pills seized by the DEA contain xylazine. Fuck.
Yeah, I have a weird, I don't know if obsession's the right word, but I like watching like drug documentaries and like interviews with like drug addicts and like, DEA agents, like all that kind of stuff is just kind of fascinating to me because I don't have a drug problem, and it's just interesting to me how people like will choose to go down that road over and over and over, even though it just seems like the worst thing ever. But the addicts, when they talk about being on fentanyl, they'll choose the xylazine now with the fentanyl because it's much better. And they know they're going to die from it like really soon, and they keep choosing it. It's pretty wild. And if you're a heroin addict, you can't even find heroin these days. You can't get heroin. It's all fentanyl.
Really?
Yeah. I've had a few different friends die from fentanyl. They thought they were buying a baggie of cocaine and partying and just dropped dead.
Yeah, well, that happened to a group of comedians in L.A. recently.
It's so messed up.
It's fucking horrible. And it's the number one killer, I think, of people in like 18 to 49.
Yeah.
Something nuts like that. It's like 100,000 people a year dying of overdoses.
What do you think about parents sending test kits with kids to go to parties so they can test the drugs?
Well, it's certainly better than not testing it and taking it.
Right.
Obviously, the best thing would be to don't take any drugs. But, especially when kids are drinking, you're fucking, all your judgment goes out the window. You're not thinking straight. You're drunk. And then someone offers Coke and there's peer pressure. And you're like, I'll try it. And then next thing you know, you're dead. If there was a method of testing, and I know they use that a lot at raves, because that was one of the issues at raves, was that people were buying MDMA, and that was laced with fentanyl.
For sure.
They would wind up overdosing with that.
Yeah.
That's fucking scary shit, man. Also, parents are sending their kids Narcan or Narcan.
Narcan.
To help them survive an overdose.
Well, and to help other people.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of kids in Portland are being trained and sending their kids to school with Narcan, and they're trained to give Narcan to heroin addicts or to fentanyl addicts, which is crazy. That's the other thing they say in those documentaries. They always interview the addicts and they say, how many times have you they say, have you OD'd before? And they're all like, yeah, of course. And they're how many times? And they all say countless. They don't know. Imagine ODing so many times where you literally do not know how many times it's been, and then going straight back and getting high again, like with a needle.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's a real crisis.
Yeah, it really is a crisis. I mean, you have kids. I have kids, so these are things that are like totally on the front burner for me. Like, to me, I'm never sending my kids to a party with test kits. That's not like, I feel like talking to them from a super young age, totally having super transparent heart-to-heart talks with them about friends that I've had that thought they were getting one drug and it was laced with this shit that is completely deadly and dropping dead. Just drugs are different, man. They're not how it was when we were kids. When we were kids, like, people would experiment. It was completely normal. Like, I feel like those days are over in some aspects, you know?
For sure. Well, the real problem, and this is a very uncomfortable discussion, but the real problem is that drug prohibition has made criminals the only source of drugs. And you have no idea what you're getting. And that's the problem. And if you make drugs legal, all drugs legal, you're going to have a bunch of people that are doing drugs that wouldn't do drugs if they were illegal. Yeah. So you have that problem. And so how do you mitigate that? How long does it take before the dust settles and life normalizes? Because if you think about the prohibition in the United States, prohibition of alcohol in the United States propped up the mob. Everybody knows that. It's a fact. It's widely, openly discussed. The only people that were selling the alcohol were the people that were criminals. They made a shitload of money. They amassed massive power because of that. And they used it. They used it to control cities. And until they got infiltrated and the mob got broken up, they for a long time they reaped the rewards of the power that they started to develop during Prohibition. And that's exactly what you're seeing with the cartels. The reason why the cartels have so much power is because there's so much demand for illegal drugs in the United States.
And that's not going away.
Well, it's not going away.
No.
People have always wanted to do drugs. There's always going to be a certain lost segment of our population that wants to escape reality with some fucking hardcore shit that puts them in a trance.
Yeah, well, they're finding it.
Yeah.
If they want that, it's everywhere.
What is Hawaii's problems? What is like on the Big Island? What are their main drug problems?
I mean, it's been meth for the most part for like the last 20 years. That's taken a toll. There's no doubt about it. Meth has been like probably the biggest problem, but now it's turning into fentanyl. One of the little girls in my daughter's circle of friends was on Instagram Live. This was like 2 years ago. Like, a girl was like 12 years old. She was like on Instagram Live. No one was home at her house, and she went in her mom's medicine cabinet, and she found a little baggie of white powder.
Oh, God.
And chopped it up in a line on Instagram Live. She just had her friends or whatever, like her 10, 15 friends that follow her, like a little girl, and was like, "Dare me?" And she snorted it. It was pure fentanyl.
Oh, God.
And it turns out her mom was selling it. That was on the Big Island in my daughter's little circle of friends.
And she died.
That's happening everywhere, man. That's my little tiny town that I feel is like a little town, like a little farm town that grows coffee, and like that's where you surf and hang out. It's like super mellow, but somehow that's really happening. Like those drugs have infiltrated like every last little corner of our country. It's wild, man. Wild.
It is wild. And the alternative doesn't seem appealing either. The alternative of making heroin and cocaine legal at stores, that scares the shit out of me too.
Yeah. It's weird that it's like regional. Like it's really bad in Canada. Horrible. The drug epidemic. Like, I was in not Toronto, what's the other giant city on the West Coast? Vancouver. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of homeless people, fentanyl zombies all over these like big city blocks, like thousands of them, like, slumped over. Have you seen that when they get slumped over? Mm-hmm. That's the Tranq. So that's a tranquilizer thing. So they get super high and they're tranquilizer. So they basically are like, they don't fall, but they like swaying. But I feel like in Canada, it's huge. In the U.S., it's huge. But I was in France and Spain. None of that.